Escape from Tarkov has made waves across gaming for popularizing the extraction shooter genre, and throughout its many changes for better or worse, the game has officially made its 1.0 release with many new additions since its beta release in 2017. Considering that this game is not necessarily new to the market, this review will cover the changes and additions made for the 1.0 release and how well it affected its final product from the perspective of playing in the PvE zone on the BSG launcher, so it will not cover the experiences from either the PvP zone or the Steam release. But before fully covering those changes, this starting portion will cover the fundamentals for those unfamiliar with Escape from Tarkov. Story-wise, Tarkov is set in the fictional Novinsk region's special economic zone in northwestern Russia as a major corporation called Terror Group starts causing trouble in the city, eventually leading to the contract wars, an armed conflict where Terror Group's hired hands, USEC, are pitted against the Russian government's private army, Bear, causing Tarkov and its surrounding areas to become a major battleground with everyone else getting caught in the crossfire. This would culminate in the Blue Fire incident, where an EMP completely shuts off Tarkov from the rest of the world, leaving everyone behind its walls locked inside. The player plays as an abandoned PMC of either USEC or Bear, as they're given a bunch of tasks hoping to eventually escape from Tarkov. It's almost like it's in the name! The gameplay loop consists of raids, by dropping the player in a semi-open world, or sandbox map for them to shoot and loot, but with the catch of a countdown timer for the player to make it to an extraction point. Meanwhile, the player is given a bunch of tasks to complete by the in-game traders for them to earn rewards from guns to supplies, armor, and so on. However, what makes Tarkov distinct from other shooters during its time and even today is its punishing difficulty, where if one dies, they lose whatever they have on their person and would need to resupply from their stash. This is remedied by the option to play as a scav, an essentially free loadout with no net loss unless a scav was to die in a run too. Lastly, the player has a hideout for them to craft items and decorate to their heart's content. Now, how well does this game fare as a fully released product? The game has been in development since the mid-2010s and has undergone change after change, so what worked out and what didn't. And for those just getting into the game, there will be a brief explanation to compare the major changes and how well those changes are in my opinion. The first major change is the flea market, an online marketplace for players to trade items between each other for profit. It underwent a great change where the unlock stays at level 15, but now certain items can only be bought and sold at certain levels, going as high as level 40. I'm not a fan of this change, as the whole reason for the flea market is to let things be more accessible to players, and these restrictions not only bar them from supplies they need, but it also kills the incentive to even use it. Based on free market logic, and after some advice from a friend who did business classes, these restrictions of items would only scrutinize the economy by leaving the trading only for those who no-life the game while keeping the lower level players from making significant progress. If the devs wanted to control the flea market from abuse, they should add a restriction to sell certain items at a limit, so they're not selling 100 bolts at a time, for example, but instead like 15. They can also bring back the need for items to have been found in raid in order to sell them, to better incentivize the need to play and extract from maps, or to make use of the hideout for a more stable economy. The next major change is the hideout, which grew to be a hub to craft items, test out weapons, and give boosts to the player. Each model requires certain items, some harder to obtain than others, and now some items require the found in raid status while others don't. And I think this is fine, as it has a combination of needing to go out to find the items and while also allowing items to be sold on the flea market without abusing the system. The next massive addition is an actual story that better fleshes out the story of Tarkov. As mentioned before, the story puts the player in the perspective of an abandoned PMC trying to escape from Tarkov, with what were main tasks, aka quests before, are now become side quests to gain some rewards and karma with the traders. This edition of the story now allows some kind of narrative progress with the game, which I feel is for the best, and the addition of traders' cutscenes make the player feel, in a strange way, less alone as before, as the sole interactions out of raid are only through text. For the more fun stuff, The 1.0 release added some firepower to the already large arsenal, with the addition of the Colt M16E1, aka the Vietnam M16, the Colt M16A2, aka the Gulf War M16, the Marlin 1895, and the AK-308 Winchester, which I've tried out most of them and are indeed incredibly fun to use, leaving me hoping for the addition of even more guns. Maybe a SAW, or an L85, or because the AK-50 is now in the game, maybe a Barrett? The possibilities are endless, but these post-release weapons I feel will leave players entertained for quite a while, and with the most detailed gunsmith system of any game I've ever played, it will only prolong engagement with these new toys. Lastly is the PvE zone itself. The PvE zone consists of an entirely different world where enemy players are replaced by NPC PMCs that would still provide a challenge if you're not careful. The mode was met with controversy in its original release, which will not be covered here, but overall I see it as a big plus, as I main PvE now and it generally allows an otherwise challenging game to be more fun. It makes each match still feel like a challenge and a task and a half, but at least it's not as frustrating or miserable to play as my long time with PvP made some days feel genuinely horrible to go through. However, there is one glaring flaw present in PvE, and that is the fact that you'd still need to play on a server with certain maps. For the most part, chiming into a map as a PMC can get you in quickly, but if you want to play on a map like Streets, Labs, or just a regular scav run, you'll be put on a server to play, which, unless you're playing with buddies, I feel is completely redundant and frustrating, as every now and then my game would begin to stutter due to a wonky connection on the servers. I don't have a clip, but one time I was in a match of Streets with a buddy of mine, and I got disconnected in the middle of the road, while it was in the middle of reconnecting, I got run over by a BTR. Needless to say, if there is one thing to fix about PvE, it's to let you play not on a server if you're playing alone, because for the most part, I generally play solo, but if I'm playing with friends, it would be greatly appreciated if I could not disconnect in the middle of the match, as that is nothing short of frustrating. In conclusion, EFT's full release made some significant changes to the game, not only from when I started playing late 2022, but since its beta in 2017. And while there are some features I didn't like, the additions made for the game's 1.0 release helped it feel more like a complete product after years of development, rendering my verdict for EFT's PvE zone an 8 out of 10. It is not the first extraction shooter ever made, but it is arguably the first to popularize, formulate, and solidify the genre that so many tried to copy with varying degrees of success or failure. And for those into tactical shooters, milsim games, or general gun nuts, it is basically everything they have asked for, and I know damn well that it is everything I've asked for. But other than that, that is going to conclude my review for Escape from Tarkov's full 1.0 release from the perspective of the PvE zone, from the perspective of the BSG launcher. Thank you everyone for watching this review. But as I always say, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between, and everyone in New Orleans, my name is Cobra. And y'all have yourselves a beautiful night.